Welcome in, everyone. It's so incredibly good to have you joining us today for this deep dive.
So glad you're here.
Wherever you are right now, maybe you're, folding laundry, maybe you're on a treadmill, or maybe you're stuck in the endless gridlock of a morning commute. Just pull up a chair in your mind and get comfortable.
Because we have an absolute stunner of a journey ahead of us today.
We really do. We are pointing our compass toward a truly breathtaking novel called The Elsewhere Express by Samantha Sotto Yambao.
Such a phenomenal piece of work.
It is. If you're someone who is constantly searching for a narrative that flawlessly bridges the gap between grounded, gritty urban reality and this expansive, deep psychological fantasy, you have navigated to the exact right place.
Right.
Our mission today is to thoroughly unpack the intricate, beautifully impossible mechanics of a world built entirely out of human imagination, daydreams, and regrets.
We're going to examine the literal and metaphorical weight of our emotional baggage.
Exactly. And we're going to have some very difficult questions about what it really means to find your purpose when you feel entirely, completely lost.
It's a remarkable text, truly, and what makes the Elsewhere Express so deeply compelling isn't just the magic system. It's how it takes these profoundly abstract, universal human feelings.
It's the really heavy stuff.
Yeah, the heavy burden of memory, the desperate urge for escapism, the paralyzing nature of regret, and it turns them into physical, tangible spaces that you can walk through. It effectively asks us to look at the literal architecture of our own minds.
And to get us in the right headspace for this, I want to pose a scenario directly to you, our listener. Picture this vividly. You are on your daily commute.
Oh, we all know this feeling.
We do. Maybe you're crammed into a middle seat on a crowded, sterile subway car. Or you're sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic watching the taillights just bleed into the rain.
Yeah.
You're staring blankly out the window, and you start daydreaming. You know the exact kind of daydream I'm talking about. You're imagining an entirely different life.
A different career, a different city.
A different version of yourself who didn't make that one colossal, life-altering mistake. Now, what if those daydreams didn't just vanish into the ether when the train doors finally opened or the traffic light turned green?
Right.
What if all those fleeting, desperate thoughts physically manifested into a tangible, endless, magical train? And what if, at the exact moment you finally gave up on your current reality, you accidentally boarded it?
It's an incredibly seductive premise, isn't it? The ultimate escape hatch from a life that has just become too heavy to carry. But as we'll see, the cost of that ticket is staggering.
Very staggering.
And we have to set the analytical tone right from the start here, because the Elsewhere Express is not just a whimsical fantasy adventure where people go on fun, lighthearted, magical quests.
No, not at all.
It is a profound and at times utterly devastating exploration of grief. It is about memory, trauma, and that deeply ingrained, almost biological human instinct to just flee from pain when it becomes unbearable. It explores the extreme lengths to which we will go to stop hurting.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the way Samantha Sotto Yambao introduces us to this concept is so incredibly grounded in the mundane before it tips over into the extraordinary.
Yes, the transition is brilliant.
Let's look at how a person even gets on this thing in the first place.
Yeah.
The trigger for boarding the Elsewhere Express isn't, walking up to a kiosk and buying a ticket.
Right, there's no physical station.
Exactly. The train doesn't stop at geographical stations like Grand Central or Waterloo. Instead, it catches people when they mentally and emotionally float away from their lives. The exact phrase used in the text, which I just think is stunning, is that the train catches you at the end of all your dreams at a quarter past your heaviest sigh.
What's fascinating here is the precise psychological condition required for boarding.
Yeah.
The train operates as a literal safety net for the deeply disillusioned. It requires a profound moment of surrender, a complete severing of the tether to reality.
It's not just a passing wish to be on a beach somewhere.
No, it is the absolute depletion of hope in one's current trajectory. That heaviest sigh represents the exact threshold where the weight of reality becomes too much to bear and the mind dissociates. The train swoops in at that moment of total vulnerability.
We actually see this happen in real time with some brilliant, almost voyeuristic observational details on a mundane subway car. We see a woman sitting there, staring out into the dark tunnel.
I love this scene.
It's so good. She's stroking her orange cat, which is appropriately named Mustard, and she's doing so with these long, glittery acrylic nail extensions. Each nail has a little galaxy painted on it.
Such a specific, great detail.
And she is completely, entirely lost in a daydream. She is imagining building this sprawling, perfect animal sanctuary. A place where unwanted goldfish don't turn gray from neglect, where horses and bunnies roam free and safe. And simultaneously, she's thinking about what to make for dinner. Sole fillets baked in butter, garlic, lemon, and her secret ingredient, mustard. It's such a beautifully human, tangled web of thoughts. She is physically on the subway, but mentally, she is already halfway onto the Elsewhere Express.
It perfectly illustrates how easily we slip into alternate realities to self-soothe.
Absolutely.
The sanctuary she dreams of is a place of absolute care and control, which stands in stark contrast to whatever chaotic or unfulfilling reality she's currently enduring. Her mind is unknowingly building the tracks for the express to arrive on. She's laying down the emotional infrastructure.
But the two passengers we really follow deeply into this world are carrying much, much heavier burdens than dinner plans and goldfish. We have our protagonist, Raya, though notably her first-year medical school ID still bears the name Raya.
That name change is so important.
It really is. She is a brilliant student who has been utterly crushed by an unimaginable tragedy. Exactly 10 years to the day prior to her boarding, she sat by her teenage brother Jace's hospital bed, squeezing his hand, desperately bargaining with the universe.
Yeah.
Jace had a terrible disease, and the family had spent years bracing themselves for the agonizing medical twists and turns of that illness. But in a cruel, entirely senseless twist of fate, what actually left him brain dead wasn't the disease at all.
It's just devastating.
It was a drunk driver in a red pickup truck just blocks from their home. She is drowning in this grief, operating like a ghost in her own life. She's clutching a scalpel in med school, going through the motions, but feeling entirely, completely disconnected from the world of the living.
Raya's grief is incredibly complex. It's compounded by the utter senselessness of the tragedy.
Right.
The disease was something her family could mentally prepare for. It had a biological logic to it, however cruel. But the random violence of a drunk driver shatters any illusion of order, fairness, or safety in the universe.
It makes the world feel absurd.
Exactly. When you experience a loss like that, the world feels inherently unsafe. Her change of name, dropping a Haya from Raya to become Raya, signifies a fractured identity. She has literally cut off a piece of herself, just as her life was cut in half by Jace's accident.
Oh, yeah.
And she's holding on to a heavy, upcycled tote bag that essentially functions as a physical manifestation of her emotional baggage. She is hauling her grief everywhere she goes.
And then we have our other main passenger, Q, or Q Chen Phillips Jr. He is a passionate, talented painter who is facing every visual artist's absolute worst nightmare. He is rapidly, irreversibly losing his sight.
A truly terrifying prospect.
He's at the end of his rope. And his final act in the real world before the train catches him is so cinematic and so deeply heartbreaking. He has this one final, incomplete painting on his easel. It's simply titled Unfinished, and it captures a woman's left eye.
Just a left eye.
Yeah. He knows his manager can sell it. He knows it fits perfectly into his upcoming silent auction to raise money for blindness research. But instead of letting it go to the gallery, he wraps this unfinished canvas in brown paper, takes it to the subway platform, and he violently hurls it onto the tracks into the waiting dark.
He throws it right into the void.
He explicitly states that he preferred the furious, active anger of losing his sight to the passive, helpless mourning of his dreams. Rage is the only thing keeping him breathing.
That distinction between rage and mourning is a crucial psychological insight that the author nails.
Definitely.
Anger is an activating emotion. It gives you a sense of agency, false as it may be. Mourning, on the other hand, is surrendering to the loss. Q hurls the painting away because he refuses to be an object of pity, and he refuses to peacefully accept the theft of his vision.
He wants to control the end.
By throwing the painting onto the tracks, he is actively destroying his dream before the universe can slowly finish taking it from him. It's an act of taking back control, which is the exact kind of high-stakes emotional threshold that the Elsewhere Express is drawn to.
Wait, I want to push back on that for a second. Is it really taking back control, though? Or is it a preemptive surrender masquerading as power?
That's an interesting way to look at it.
By destroying the painting, Q robs himself of the chance that someone else might find beauty in his unfinished work. He robs the blindness research charity of the funds. He's letting his rage blind him before his eyes actually physically fail him. It feels less like taking control and more like a deeply self-destructive temper tantrum born of absolute terror.
That is a very fair counterpoint. It is absolutely self-destructive. But in his mind, in that specific moment of crisis, taking any action feels better than passively waiting for the darkness to consume him.
I could see that.
You're right that it's a preemptive surrender, but it's a surrender on his terms. He is controlling the timeline of the destruction, even if the outcome is essentially the same. And that fierce, desperate energy is exactly what summons the train.
So these two individuals, completely broken in entirely different ways, hit their heaviest size at the exact same time. And the transition is so seamless. One moment, Raya is on a sterile, cold, blue plastic-seated subway car, and the next, the environment shifts completely.
The sensory shift is massive.
Suddenly, she's in a vintage train car. The walls are warm, polished cherry wood. The ceiling is backlit onyx that casts a soft, inviting glow. Instead of hard, sticky plastic, she's sitting on lush velvet couches. The sensory upgrade is the first jarring clue that the rules of reality have been completely suspended.
The environment reflects exactly what the traumatized mind craves: comfort, warmth, aesthetic beauty, and safety. The sterile blue plastic of the real world is cold, indifferent, and institutional.
It's designed for efficiency, not comfort.
Right. The Elsewhere Express immediately wraps the passenger in luxury and care, creating a stark, immediate contrast to the harshness they just escaped. It's an anesthetic space entirely designed to soothe the frayed nervous system.
I want you listening right now to think about that for a second. Consider your own heaviest sigh moments. Have you ever had a day so relentlessly difficult, or a period of your life so steeped in sorrow or anxiety, that you just wished a physical train could literally scoop you up, velvet couches, warm onyx lighting and all, and take you entirely off your current path?
I think everyone has.
No responsibilities, no grief, just endless forward motion in a beautiful space. It is such a powerfully universal fantasy.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the human fight-or-flight response, heavily skewed toward flight. When fighting reality proves impossible.
Like curing a brain-dead brother.
Exactly, or medically reversing progressive blindness. Flight is the only perceived option for survival.
But the sheer scale of where they fly to is what blew my mind. There's a specific mechanic here that completely shifted my understanding of this world. The train isn't made of steel and rivets and glass. It is constructed entirely from waking thoughts.
This is such a unique concept.
And Samantha Sotto Yambao makes a very specific distinction. Sleep dreams belong to the sleeper. Those are yours to keep. The train cannot touch your REM cycle. But the daydreams, the wandering thoughts, the mental lists, the elaborate escape plans you make while staring at a spreadsheet.
Those are what physically build the Elsewhere Express.
Exactly.
This distinction is brilliant. Sleep dreams are unconscious. We don't actively control them, and they often reflect our anxieties in chaotic ways. But daydreams are active, conscious coping mechanisms.
We curate them.
We do. They are desires, frustrations, and carefully constructed plans projected outward into the waking world. The novel essentially posits a law of psychological thermodynamics. Emotional energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed.
So all that daydreaming has to go somewhere.
Yes. All that mental energy expelled by billions of people daydreaming on their commutes has to coalesce into this physical infrastructure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The examples of this architecture are just staggering in their creativity. We meet Lily, the sharp, red-headed conductor of the train, who explains this to Q and Raya. She knocks on a mast on one of the train cars.
Because parts of the train look like old ships.
Right, and she says the bamboo mast is actually created from a mental list a woman made of all the reasons why she is divorcing her husband. It's strong, rigid, unbending resolve, manifested as a physical structural support.
Incredible.
And the sails. They're woven from an accountant's hyper-detailed, incredibly meticulous vacation itinerary. Because it was so thoroughly planned, the sails are impossible to tear and have absolutely no holes.
It's a wonderful materialization of intent. The firmness of the decision to divorce becomes the unyielding strength of the mast. The obsessive attention to detail in the vacation itinerary becomes the impermeable, wind-catching fabric of the sail.
It's so clever.
The architecture of the train is literally held together by human longing and conviction. It tells us that our thoughts have mass, they have weight, and they have profound structural integrity.
Which is such a beautiful concept until you realize how messy our thoughts actually are. Lily explains the concept of threads of thought. She shows them these ornate, gilded picture frames that are scattered around the train.
The frames are vital to navigating the train.
They are. If you look through them, acting like a camera's focus lens, you can cut through the visual noise and actually see the raw fabric of the train. Raya looks through one and sees glowing, blurry golden strings coiling and twisting in massive, chaotic knots.
And Lily explains that every thought is connected to memories, lies, and truths.
They are woven together. No single idea stands alone. And in that moment, Raya realizes her own mind is just as tangled. She thinks of how three specific, seemingly unrelated memories twist around each other to form a literal noose around her neck.
A stolen tube of lipstick, a random song, and frantic knocking on her childhood bedroom door.
Yes, it's so visceral.
The gilded frames are a profound metaphor for perspective and mindfulness. In our everyday lives, our thoughts are an overwhelming, tangled mess. We rarely see where one thought begins and another ends.
Or how a daydream is tethered to a trauma.
Exactly, or a buried childhood memory. Looking through the frame force's focus, it isolates the interconnectedness of our internal narratives. Raya realizing that her trauma is a noose woven from three specific memories is her beginning to see the architecture of her own suffering. She realizes she is as tangled as the train itself.
I love how this tangled nature applies to how you navigate the train, particularly the doors. The doors on the Elsewhere Express are not your standard wooden rectangles with brass knobs. They can look like absolutely anything.
A patch of wildflowers.
Yes, a patch of strange, silver-blue wildflowers casting light in a meadow could be a door. And because they are born of living, dynamic thoughts, they act alive. They get bored and literally move around. And to keep from getting lonely, the doors actually sing to each other.
Which is just so whimsical but frustrating for the passengers.
Right. Passengers who aren't naturally attuned to the music have to rely on those gilded frames to spot where the exits and entrances are hiding in plain sight. I mean, just imagine the absurdity of that. You are trying to flee from your deepest existential dread, but you have to wait for a patch of wildflowers to finish harmonizing before you can exit the dining car.
It is wonderfully absurd, but it also literalizes a very common psychological phenomenon. The moving, singing doors represent the fluidity of thought and memory.
How so?
Well, have you ever tried to recall a specific memory, and it completely eludes you, but then a random smell or snippet of a song on the radio suddenly transports you right back to it in vivid detail?
Well, all the time.
The entryways into our own minds are not fixed. A song can be a doorway to a first love. The smell of rain on asphalt can be a doorway to childhood innocence. The doors move because our access points to our own memories and thoughts constantly shift based on our emotional state.
The train takes that frustrating feeling when a memory is right on the tip of your tongue but you just can't access it, and turns it into a literal, physical door that keeps walking away from you.
It's a brilliant physicalization of memory retrieval.
So, if we take this concept that a song or a smell is a door, imagine how everyday items in your life right now might manifest on this train. A spilled cup of coffee on your desk might not just be a stain. On the Elsewhere Express, it might become a dark, rushing tunnel of sudden, bitter realizations.
A lost set of keys might manifest as an endless, towering hedge maze.
Exactly. The world building turns the mundane into the monumental. And this brings up a fascinating philosophical debate between Raya and Lily the conductor. Raya is a medical student. She is highly analytical, highly skeptical.
She doesn't just accept things at face value.
Right, she looks around and accuses the train of being entirely fake, a place where everything is masquerading as something else. Divorce lists pretending to be masts, itineraries pretending to be sails, even Lily herself masquerading as a savior.
But Lily counters this beautifully and aggressively.
She does. She asks Raya to examine the quote-unquote real world she just left behind. A world that drapes people in gold and diamonds to create a false sense of value. A world that builds massive houses with more rooms than people just to project wealth, where an excess of emptiness makes a better home.
Lily is asserting that our societal constructs, the economy, social media, status symbols, are the true illusions.
Lily basically flips the script on what is fake. She argues that the real world is built entirely on camouflage, wealth, prestige, fame, guilt. You wake up in pajamas a stranger designed, you drink coffee a marketing department convinced you to buy, and you navigate a city shaped by dead generations who didn't know you.
And on the train, things appear exactly as what they are fueled by, human truth.
A woman's unyielding strength is amassed. To find your place here, you must present your true, unvarnished self, stripped of societal masks.
It's a devastating critique of modern existence. The Elsewhere Express, despite being made of literal daydreams, is positioned as a more honest environment because the physical reality is directly one-to-one mapped to emotional truth. There is no hiding your inner self when the environment is physically built from inner selves.
I see Lily's point, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Is the train actually more honest? Or is it just a different type of camouflage?
That's the million-dollar question.
Sure, a mask is made of a divorce list, but it still looks like a mask. It's still taking a painful human experience and dressing it up as a beautiful, functional object to make a fantasy world run smoothly. That feels almost parasitic to me. It's harvesting human pain and calling it interior design.
That is a phenomenal read on the situation. The train aestheticizes pain. It takes the ugly, jagged edges of human suffering and sands them down into polished cherrywood and onyx lighting.
It makes it palatable.
Yes. You could argue that by turning a painful divorce into a sturdy mast, the train is inherently dishonest because it strips the pain of its ugliness. It makes trauma useful and pretty, which is a very dangerous illusion.
Exactly. And that dangerous illusion comes with a steep, steep cost. But existing in this space of pure emotional truth isn't a free ride. Once you're marveling at the cherry wood and the singing doors, how do you actually secure your right to stay?
You have to pay the toll.
Your ticket isn't a piece of paper you slip into your pocket. It manifests as a gold eternity knot embroidered directly into the skin of the palm of your hand. This knot represents your place and purpose on the train.
The physical marking of the passenger is highly significant. It's a branding. It's a binding physical contract. The eternity knot symbolizes the timelessness of the train, the endless forward motion, but also the tangled, infinite nature of existence if you choose to stay.
It's beautiful, but it's a trap.
It is fundamentally a tether. You belong to the train now.
And that tether comes with one absolute, non-negotiable rule. The rule of baggage. Lily explains that you cannot hold on to two things at once. The weight of your past and the infinite tomorrows of eternity pull in opposite directions.
The physics of the train demand it.
All right. The train cannot accommodate the combined load of its passengers' infinite futures and the heavy weight of their past trauma. If a passenger insists on clinging to their heavy baggage, their past life, their grief, their memories of the people they loved and lost, that beautiful gold knot on their palm begins to physically unravel.
This is the chilling ultimatum of the Elsewhere Express. It demands absolute presence. You can have an eternity of peace, comfort, and purpose, but the admission fee is the total eradication of the pain that shaped you.
You have to cut it out of yourself.
To live forever without pain, you must abandon the memory of what caused the pain in the first place. The logic the train presents is brutal but mathematically simple. The past is heavy, eternity is long. If you carry heavy things for eternity, you will eventually collapse. Therefore, to survive eternity, you must be weightless.
If that knot comes completely undone, you lose your bond to the train, and you fall off into the void. Lily tells them this while looking out at some ghostly, flickering lights in the dark water outside the train windows.
Q does not react well to this.
Not at all. Q, who still has all his anger boiling just beneath the surface, gets furious at this. He asks the obvious question. Why not just let the people who fall off back on? Throw them a lifeline. Have some compassion.
And Lily essentially says, the train does not reissue tickets.
Once you fall, you are off for good.
Notice how the train forces a binary choice. Complete amnesia of trauma or total rejection from paradise. There's no integration of grief allowed here.
It's all or nothing.
Therapy in the real world is about integrating your trauma so you can carry it without it destroying you. The train says, no, integration is too hard. Amputation is the only way.
Amputation of your memories.
Right. And if we look closely at Lily, the conductor who enforces these brutal rules, we see cracks in her own facade. Earlier, the text mentioned she has a delicate tattoo peeking out from the edge of her crisp white glove. It's a man's name written in cursive script that looks like a red thread.
I am so glad you brought up the red thread tattoo.
In many East Asian cultures, the red thread of fate connects those who are destined to meet regardless of time, place, or circumstance. The thread may stretch or tangle, but it will never break.
So she's breaking her own rules.
The fact that Lily, the strict enforcer of the let go of your past rule, has a permanent marker of a man's name tethered to her wrist suggests that she herself is managing incredibly heavy baggage. She preaches total detachment, but she wears her attachment permanently inked into her skin.
The hypocrisy is fascinating.
It hints that the rules of the train are incredibly difficult, perhaps entirely impossible, even for its oldest and most devoted residents to fully obey.
But the train highly incentivizes you to follow the rules, using bribery. If you can let go, if you search the cars without looking back and find your specific fated compartment, you get your reward. You become permanently anchored to the train, safe from falling.
Plus the room service.
Plus the room service. Lily promises that once you find your room, housekeeping has left you chocolate-covered strawberries and a bottle of chilled champagne waiting by the minibar. It's the ultimate luxury hotel pitch. Just forget your dead brother, forget your blindness, forget the love of your life, and enjoy the champagne.
It highlights the seductive nature of avoidance. The rewards are immediate sensory and psychological comforts. Safety, sweetness, intoxication.
A sugar rush to numb the pain.
It's the ultimate bribe to stop doing the grueling, agonizing work of grieving. Why do the hard work of processing trauma when you can just drink champagne in a velvet lounge?
But what happens if you refuse the bribe? Or more importantly, what happens to the past you're supposed to discard? Because outside the lush velvet and the warm cherry wood, the Elsewhere Express is hiding something horrifying. All the curtains on the train are kept strictly closed. And outside, there is this horrific, constant scratching and screeching sound.
A truly unsettling detail.
Lily claims this sound comes from passengers who failed to find their compartments, who couldn't let go of their baggage, and tumbled off. She says they tread water in the dark, battering the ship, begging to be let back in.
It's a terrifying image, and it serves as a powerful deterrent. Lily uses fear to enforce compliance. The implied message is, if you don't do exactly as I say and forget your past, you will become one of those desperate monsters scratching at the glass in the dark.
It's compliance through terror.
It's a classic, almost authoritarian mechanism of control.
But Q and Raya are too sharp to just accept that. They discover the conductor's lie, they meet characters like Ollie and a pharmacist named Mr. Go. I want to spend some real time on Mr. Go because his role is fascinating.
He's a crucial part of the train's ecosystem.
He is a vital figure on the train because he literally brews an excess baggage serum. And he doesn't use chemicals or herbs. He distills these tonics from poems. Passengers drink this serum to purge their heavy memories.
Think about why Mr. Go uses poetry, of all things, to create this memory-purging serum. Poetry is the ultimate, most concentrated distillation of human emotion.
It's emotion stripped down to its core.
A great poem takes a vast, complex feeling like grief or heartbreak and condenses it into a few potent lines. By drinking a distilled poem, the passengers are essentially using concentrated art as an anesthetic. They are consuming the emotional processing of a poet to bypass their own emotional processing.
Wow, yes. And when they drink it, what happens to those purged memories? They don't just vanish. Energy cannot be destroyed. The purged memories literally go down the drain in the pharmacy. Ollie reveals that those flushed memories, the trauma, the grief, the discarded parts of people's lives, the faces of their loved ones.
They literally become what are known on the train as echoes.
Yes, echoes.
This raises an important question, perhaps the most critical ethical question of the entire story. The things scratching at the windows aren't the failed passengers.
They're not people at all.
They are the disembodied memories of the successful passengers. They are the spectral faces of the grief, the trauma, and the love that people willingly chose to cut out of themselves in order to stay on the train.
When Q and Raya finally pull back the curtain and look out the window, they see the terrifying visual reality of this process. They see a valley of lost objects arranged in a massive giant spiral. And at the dead center of this spiral is a rushing whirlpool of whispering spectral faces. The echoes.
It's a nightmare landscape.
The past has to go somewhere. It pools together into a swirling, agonizing vortex of discarded pain.
The existential horror here is profound. The train is a paradise fueled by the willing self-mutilation of identity. The passengers are enjoying their chocolate strawberries and their champagne, while the amputated pieces of their own souls are left outside in the cold dark, screaming and scratching at the glass, desperate to be reunited with them.
It's horrifying when you really think about it.
The train isn't actually outrunning pain, it's just exiling it to the perimeter. It's creating a landfill of human suffering just outside the window.
And Ollie points out exactly why Lily lies about this. He says, if passengers knew that the monsters at the window were actually parts of themselves, their own abandoned memories, the ghost of a dead brother, the memory of a lost love, no one would ever drink the serum.
Of course not.
They wouldn't have the heart to cast their old lives away if they knew they were essentially banishing them to a cold, swirling vortex of eternal suffering. The lie is absolutely required for the system to function.
It is the ultimate critique of forced positivity and the suppression of negative emotions. If we compartmentalize our trauma and refuse to acknowledge it, it doesn't vanish, it becomes an echo.
Scratching at the glass.
It lurks just outside our consciousness, scratching at the glass of our minds, desperate for acknowledgement. The train requires the passengers to remain willfully ignorant of their own psychological fragmentation to maintain the illusion of paradise. So we have to ask, is ignorance truly bliss if the cost is literally carving away the depths of your humanity and leaving it to drown?
I would argue absolutely not. But let's say you do it. Let's say you drink the poem serum, you forget your past,
Mhm.
and you're living in this eternal present. What exactly do you do all day for eternity?
That's the other illusion.
The Passenger Handbook details an incredibly vibrant day-to-day existence. There's the Lotus Lounge for welcome drinks, the Dragonfly dining car for tea time, the Sky Art Studio for painting workshops, the Archive for maps, and even a wandering city boat tour where you can see hummingbirds and flowing rivers of fleeting thoughts. It sounds like an endless, all-inclusive luxury cruise for the mind.
It's entirely designed to provide endless, frictionless novelty. It occupies the mind so completely with pleasant distractions that the passenger never has a quiet moment to realize what they've lost.
It's curated distraction.
The environment is meticulously curated to provide the illusion of a full life without any of the actual friction or risk that makes a life meaningful.
But then they meet Dev. Dev is a maintenance worker on the train, and his compartment is wild. It dangles from the collar of one of Mr. Go's giant cats.
I love the visual of that.
He explains the concept of purpose on the Elsewhere Express, and it completely shatters the mystical romantic illusion of it all. In the real world, people agonize over their purpose. They go on retreats, they read self-help books, they meditate on mountaintops. But Dev says, here on the train, purpose is brutally simple. Keep the train running.
It's just maintenance.
If you don't play your part in maintenance, the train falls into disrepair, grinds to a halt, and everyone perishes. There are no magical quests, no dragons to slay, no profound spiritual awakening.
So what does this all mean? It's a brilliant, biting irony. People board the Elsewhere Express because they felt lost, broken, and devoid of purpose in reality. They wanted to escape the daily grind of jobs they hated and responsibilities that crushed them.
And what do they get?
Only to arrive in a magical utopia and be immediately drafted into a cosmic, eternal maintenance crew. The grandeur of the train masks the grim reality of eternal servitude to a highly fragile system. Their entire existence is dedicated to preventing the collapse of the very mechanism they use to hide from reality.
I just love that irony. You escape capitalism just to become an indentured servant to a magical train. And the way they maintain the train is fascinating. Dev shows them his tools. He has a pouch of tiny black seeds. But they aren't plant seeds. They are lavender seeds made from calm commuter thoughts.
The specific drifty thoughts you have right before you nod off on the subway, when your brain just sort of hums.
Yeah, exactly. Dev explains that love songs are naturally drawn to the scent of these seeds. It reminds them of the climate they were born in. So they plant the seeds to attract faded love songs, which are then used to patch up the physical damage on the train.
The maintenance is essentially emotional labor weaponized for infrastructure. They are using the raw material of human connection, love songs, calm thoughts as spackle and duct tape. It reduces profound emotional resonance to mere utility.
We actually see this in action, and it's a beautiful scene. Q has a bruised arm from being tossed around earlier. Dev points out a glimmering sphere floating nearby. Raya, using just instinct, gives the sphere a swift whack. A song bursts out, a melody about faded love.
And what does it do?
It flutters over to Q, lands softly on his elbow, grows intensely bright, and instantly heals his bruise. The song vanishes, absorbed into his skin, but the damage is completely repaired. Dev is so impressed by Raya's natural aptitude that he tries to recruit her to the maintenance crew right then and there.
It's a beautiful moment of magic, absolutely, but it reinforces Dev's point. Raya's ability to heal Q isn't mystical destiny. It's the practical application of the train's resources. You master your thoughts and shape them, or they master you. You either become the mechanic or you become the raw material.
But the sanctuary of the train is far more fragile than it appears. Lily and Rasmus, another crew member, realize they have a massive problem on their hands. There's an anomaly. Rasmus points out that it never rains on the Elsewhere Express. The train is built to be a perfect, static, climate-controlled environment.
Rain is a bad sign.
Rain only happens when there is a profound danger on board that desperately needs washing away.
The introduction of weather represents the uncontrollable intrusion of reality into the fantasy. The system is breaking down. The anesthetic is wearing off.
Yeah, and Lily and Rasmus actually planned for this. Because they regularly purge their own memories to stay sane and remain on the train, they retain one single memory word as a warning to their future. Amnesiac selves. Rain.
Just that one word.
If it rains, they know a stowaway has boarded, a stowaway whose baggage is so heavy, so profound, that it is capable of shattering the train and causing everyone, all the passengers, to cease to exist.
It shows that even the architects of this grand avoidance recognize that some traumas are simply too powerful to be permanently suppressed. They built a failsafe, recognizing that total amnesia is ultimately impossible to maintain against a truly persistent, powerful grief.
And that stowaway, the threat to the entire system, is deeply connected to Raya. While Q is finding his place, he actually gets his sight back on the train and begins painting stars with the maintenance crew, fully embracing the miracle of the express and letting go of his rage. But Raya rebels.
She refuses the system.
She flat out refuses to take the serum. She refuses to forget Jace. Rasmus argues with her, pointing out that her brother is dead and the train is for the living. But Raya flips the entire premise of the train on his head. She realizes the train is a place where thoughts literally shape reality.
She sees an opportunity.
So she views the Elsewhere Express not as a place to forget, but as an impossible magical second chance to actually save Jace. She sees him near the engine, and she believes with all her heart she can set things right.
Raya's rebellion is the emotional climax of the story. She is fundamentally rejecting the core thesis of the Elsewhere Express. Q accepts the anesthetic because getting his sight back relieves his primary source of suffering. The train gives him back his art. But for Raya, forgetting Jace is a betrayal worse than the pain of his death.
It's a betrayal of her love for him.
She chooses the heavy, agonizing burden of love and grief over the light, sterile emptiness of paradise. She realizes that to cure her pain by forgetting her brother would be to erase the very core of who she is. She is defined by her love for him, and the grief is just the shadow that love casts.
I want to debate this for a second, because is Raya actually making a healthy choice here? Or is she just engaging in a different, more dangerous form of denial? She thinks she can use the train's magic to bring her brain-dead brother back to life. Isn't she just substituting the fantasy of forgetting with the fantasy of resurrection?
That is a brilliant distinction. Yes, initially her rebellion is fueled by a different kind of fantasy, bargaining. She thinks she can game the system, but the journey she takes to reach the engine forces her to confront the reality of her grief. Her journey to the exit is incredibly surreal. She confronts an alternate version of herself.
The version with lavender hair.
A version that seems to have lived a different, perhaps lighter path, and they are transported by this old-fashioned birdcage elevator.
Oh, we have to talk about the elevator. This isn't just a mechanical box with buttons. It is sentient. It silently watches the two versions of Raya weighing their choices. It recognizes that alerting them to their floor is its primary assigned purpose, but it longs for so much more. It silently hopes that one day, when it finally finds the right words, it will write the definitive story of the passengers. It wants to be an author.
I love that detail so much. Even the inanimate objects on the Elsewhere Express yearn for deeper meaning and creative expression beyond mere maintenance. The elevator is a mirror to the passengers themselves, functionally trapped in an endless loop, moving up and down, but dreaming of authoring a true, lasting narrative.
It's a beautiful thought.
It proves that the desire to create and to testify to one's existence cannot be fully suppressed, not even in a machine made of daydreams.
Ultimately, Raya makes her choice. She uses a sake bottle to somehow anchor a door. She clutches her upcycled tote bag, her literal heavy baggage, tightly to her chest, and she counts to 3. She opens her eyes, and the transition is violent.
The magic just drops away.
She is back on the subway. The sensory shift is jarring. She smells the damp mud on her pants. She sees the woman with the acrylic nail still petting Muster the cat. The magical, glowing cherry wood train fades instantly into what feels like a fever dream. But she has something incredibly real in her pocket, an invitation. It's an invitation to Q's art exhibit in the real world titled Unfinished, a silent auction.
Raya's return to the gritty, muddy, painful reality of the subway is a profound triumph. By clutching her upcycled bag, she actively reclaims her trauma, her history, and her brother's memory. She chooses the brutal, unvarnished pain of reality because it is authentic.
She chooses the truth.
The Elsewhere Express offered an eternity of numb comfort, but it required amputating her love for Jace. By returning, she accepts that grief is the steep price we pay for love, and it is a price she is willing to pay. Furthermore, Q's invitation existing in the real world is staggering. It suggests that the connection they forged and the healing that took place transcends the fantasy. Q still lost his sight, but he found a way to exhibit his work.
Think about that choice. Put yourself in Raya's muddy shoes on that subway car. Could you do it? Could you walk away from a literal utopia, a place with no pain, where every bruise is healed by a faded love song, where you can drink champagne forever, if the cost was permanently erasing the most painful yet defining memories that made you who you are? It's a staggering, almost impossible choice to make.
It is the ultimate rejection of escapism in favor of radical, painful acceptance. She decides that a painful truth is better than a beautiful lie.
What an absolutely incredible journey. We have traveled from the sterile blue plastic seats of a city subway all the way into the glowing cherrywood heart of the Elsewhere Express. We've discussed how human daydreams, meticulous divorce lists, and desperate vacation itineraries can weave together to build an impossible sanctuary,
We learned the heavy, skin-binding cost of the Golden Knot ticket.
demanding absolute presence at the expense of the past. We uncovered the horrifying, swirling secret of the echoes, those spectral faces of discarded memories trapped in a whirlpool of willing self-mutilation. And finally, we witnessed Raya's ultimate powerful choice to carry her heavy, muddy baggage back into a painful but entirely real world.
We all have our coping mechanisms. We all have little Elsewhere Expresses that we retreat into when the demands of life become overwhelming. It might be hours of mindless scrolling on a glowing screen. It might be elaborate, sprawling daydreams about a different career. It might even be throwing ourselves entirely into our work to avoid the silence of an empty house. We are constantly, desperately searching for ways to numb the ache of being alive.
Absolutely. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to ponder on your own. We spent this entire time talking about the passengers who escape to the train, the people who flee. But consider this. What happens to the real-world spaces they leave behind?
A haunting thought.
If the Elsewhere Express is physically built and fueled by the daydreaming minds of billions of people, if all that creative energy, all those intricate plans and faded love songs are being siphoned off into a magical void just to keep a fantasy train running, are we inadvertently draining the real world of its magic? When we pour all our imagination into our escapes, are we causing the real world to become the very cold, sterile, unimaginative place we are trying so desperately to flee from?
And beyond that, if you could permanently move into your favorite distraction, but the admission fee was forgetting the most defining yet painful struggle of your life, would you buy the ticket?
We'll leave you to think on that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves. And maybe, just maybe, try to stay awake on your commute home.